so much for tuning in today, Exercise Confidence listeners. I have a wonderful guest all the way from across the pond in England. Her name is Samantha Townsend, and I am so excited to have her share her story today. Samantha, everybody's favorite and probably most hated intro question. Please tell us about yourself in about 30 seconds or so.
Thank you. My name is Samantha. I've got 3 kids. I live in the northeast of England. I work for a charity, and I spend an awful lot of time in the gym lifting heavy weights.
You know what? I think that is probably the most beautiful and concise intro anybody's ever given. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Samantha. As she mentioned, she does spend a lot of time in the gym lifting weights. And that is how I found her, actually. One of her videos of her doing some amazing lifts came across my Instagram and immediately inspired me. And I figured, well, if I'm feeling inspired by her, might as well throw it out there and see if she's willing to be a guest and help inspire some of our listeners. So thank you so much for being here today, Samantha.
Totally welcome.
It's wonderful. So I guess I just like starting at the beginning with all of my guests. Growing up, back in your earlier years when you were a kid, were you always somebody that was confident and willing to just try new things?
I think that's a really, really good question. One thing about me is that I am actually autistic, and as a child, I would often display a confidence and be kind of berated for it a little bit, kind of like, oh, she's full of herself. Oh, I wish I was as brave as you. And I just did not have that barrier to start with, but I kind of learned through that process to be less confident, which is a bit of a shame, isn't it? That's not what we want for our young girls. So I certainly wasn't confident in my sort of child and teen years in terms of movement. It's physical education here, PE. I don't know what gym in the US, I guess.
Yeah, we call it PE too.
Oh, do you do? Oh, fantastic. Yeah. There we go. We've got something to build on there. No, I didn't. I had asthma, so doing anything that involved cardiovascular fitness was not a comfortable place for me. And while it's one of those things when I look back now, I was a perfectly healthy weight, I had internalized that I was fat from a very early age, that physical exercise wasn't for me. So I very much wasn't confident in all that stuff through, all of my life until quite recently, actually.
It breaks my heart that, you had such an interesting trajectory when it comes to that, right? Because you mentioned that, you had this inherent kind of confidence where things didn't necessarily scare you because of how your mind works, which I think is so wonderful. But then for whoever, whether it was, other kids or kind of authority figures in your life as a child, made you feel kind of knocked down about that and then second guess yourself, and how that kind of transcended into having to really work it full circle again to get yourself back to that confidence. And yeah, like you're saying, we don't want to do that, especially young women. It's hard enough with the way that the world sends messaging to them.
Right.
But okay, so if you're comfortable sharing, what was it like for you, and when were you diagnosed with autism, and how did that maybe shape kind of how you got to give grace to your past self and navigate the future with this knowledge?
Thanks. Yeah, I only got a diagnosis a couple of years back, and it was just sort of, I was having a tough time at work. There was clearly a communication issue that it was the root of. I was kind of being hard on myself about it, and I'd had it kind of percolated in my mind for a while. Maybe, because my kids are autistic, they got diagnosed quite early. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe actually there's something in this for me. But it's one of those things, I needed it to be confirmed, like officially, for me to really believe it, and then to give myself that grace that you described there. And that is when people ask me why I got diagnosed and why I encourage other people to seek diagnosis if possible is that it enables you to forgive yourself for the things that you found difficult. You can relate to yourself as a person with a different kind of brain rather than a person who is broken. And so it's incredibly healing. And even to be able to talk to you about those things, about my early childhood experiences of doing socially unacceptable things like standing up in an assembly at school and answering a question directly to the head teacher. He'd asked a rhetorical question to a room of 300 children, and I stood up and answered it because he'd asked the question. So, those were kind of abnormal behaviors, but if you look at them through the lens of a child growing up with autism, that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you kind of were diagnosed and all that, were you immediately comfortable sharing that and advocating for others to see if maybe there's any neurodivergence that might help them better understand themselves? Or did it kind of take you a while to reconcile that for yourself before you were comfortable sharing it?
Yeah, and I think that links to why we're here today, really. Part of my autistic presentation is that I always feel like I need to be part of something that makes the world a better place. I feel social injustice very keenly. I've got a strong sense of right and wrong, and I want to be part of doing good things in the world, which is why I do my Instagram, which is how you found me. And the same goes for my autism diagnosis. I was really clear with people. I didn't share while I was getting it done, just in case it came back that I wasn't. But as soon as the diagnosis came through, I was talking to people about it and helping people understand where I was on that journey. Because, of course, just because you've got a diagnosis doesn't make you an expert in everything either. You've got to learn. It's a journey, all the rest of it. So yeah, and it's been really important to me, like I say, to show people, to be vocal about it, so people know that people like them can be autistic, but also to share that the advantages of getting a diagnosis. A lot of people are quite scared of it. They think it's going to change their whole life, and it doesn't. It just gives you something else to make sense of the world.
In there, you mentioned about how your mind works and how you have this innate sense to want to be a part of things that make the world a better place. It's part of the work that you do, as you were sharing with me when we were setting up this podcast. You've gotten a new job, and how that really plays into some of your passions. If you're comfortable, would you mind sharing a little bit about what this new opportunity is for you, and how it also kind of helps with that self-fulfillment of really being a part of something bigger that makes the world a better place?
Yeah, great. Yeah, absolutely. That's part of all of it as well. So before I had the kids, I was a secondary school teacher, which I enjoyed because I'm helping to, grow the next generation of children and I was very passionate about education. But as my children started their journey and I realized that the education system doesn't work for all children, I really found that I was incapable of going back to being a teacher because it's so badly conflicted with my values. I cannot keep a child in during their lunchtime because they haven't done their homework or they don't have the right kind of tie on, because it doesn't work for all kids,
Yeah.
So since I had the children, I've been working in the charity sector, and thankfully, recently started a brand new job, which is working in a charity and a public health partnership where we are trying to get trusted and accurate healthcare information out into the community, which, like you say, it's so beautiful to have that connection between this passion that I've got for myself now because of my own journey, and my experience in the charity sector and all of what I know about education all wrapped up in one.
And I can't even imagine how hard it must have been, when there's these guidelines and there's certain levels of rigidity when it comes to working in, schools, especially, everybody has to kind of make sure that they're looking out for the establishment. And you were mentioning how it's just not fair because not every kid works the same way. And there's a quote that I saw a long time ago. I think I might misattribute it. I'll fact check it and I'll put it in the post-production, but I think it's Albert Einstein. And it was, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, like you'll always think it's incapable, but it's not meant to climb a tree. It's something to that effect, right? And I think that it's so beautiful that you have such a heart and a passion to, be able to find a space to ensure that there's accurate information and advocates out there to help with, not only just kids who think differently, but adults too, and you share your own journey. And I'm sure you must pull now, looking at helping children and helping the world at large with what you do. I'm sure you must pull from your own journey. And as you were kind of mentioning earlier, because of how people wrote off your confidence and autism, it then kind of started its own unfortunate kind of slippery slope in your mind, where growing up you even had, for really probably no good reason, but a negative body image. So can you share a little bit more about what that was like, navigating that, growing up as a young woman in society, and kind of having that feedback loop and trying to battle that as you've grown?
Yeah, and like I say, it's really strange, and I know a lot of women have a very similar experience where they grow up with a certain kind of body image, but then they look back on photos, they believe they were overweight as a child, but they look back on photos and they realize, actually, I was a perfectly healthy weight. How bizarre, but it's a very common experience. I always have liked food. I'm still a large woman. You can't see, but I'm about 225 pounds. Yeah.
I'm with you. I love food. I've always liked food. I come from two ethnicities that have amazing food. It was never a shortage on good food growing up. And I'll share later. I want you to keep sharing yours, but I'm deeply identifying with everything you're saying in this answer.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, like I said, I had asthma, so I wasn't into any running around sports. Probably because I was autistic, I also struggled with team sports because there's an awful lot of communication. You've got to be able to get really quickly in those things. So all of the types of things that you'd usually do in PE in school, your rugby, football, soccer, it was just never my thing. I always picked last. No, never very popular. So just very much, this is not my thing. Internalized that it wasn't my thing. We have an event called cross country, which is just running outside. And me and my friend would take turns having an injury so that we could walk behind everybody else and come in just at the end of the lesson, so that we didn't
what a
have
good friend.
Yeah. So it was just, it becomes part of your identity, doesn't it? And I think that carries on into adulthood for a lot of people, that the identity that they create around exercise and movement, they kind of keep with them for their whole life unless something changes. So I'm really grateful that something did change for me, because like I say, I'm in the gym all the time now. I really enjoy movement. I even do cardio on occasion. Yeah.
And you were mentioning it, and I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about my own journey, because I was the same way, but a little bit of the opposite side of the coin, right? So my mom, from the moment we could properly walk and move, put us in sports immediately. So I was like the little 2.5, 3-year-old doing like t-ball, like for baseball off the tee, and soccer, football. And it was one of those things where I always was doing a sport. And because of it, I played softball very competitively through to college, and I was a catcher. So it's a lot of squatting. It's a lot of lower body strength and building. And so I had thighs growing up. And I was made to feel bad about them by other, people. It was a nickname in the family, kind of like, in its own term, like a thunder thigh, if you will. And just all these things where even as a teenager, I look back and I was so fit, so strong, so healthy, constantly playing these sports year round, constantly running for conditioning. But I just, in that moment, hated my body. And it's insane because I look back now, as I'm 33 years old. I think I'm probably currently somewhere around like 192. I'm not tall. I'm 5'4". And it's one of those things where it's like, I saw a quote and it's like, I wish I was as fat as the first time I thought I was fat, because it's like I was so fit, I was so strong, I was so lean. And it's just these battles that we have to get through. And they take time. But I would love for you to share more about what that pivot was like for you. What kind of was the catalyst to get you from not really feeling confident or comfortable in moving your body at first, and then finding this new wonderful outlet that you love so much, and that has become such a cornerstone in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's another COVID-19 story. For so many people, I would never say that the pandemic was a good thing, but for a lot of people, it did provide a moment of clarity in our lives, didn't it? So, and people realized what was important to them. So I had, like I said, 3 children, and 2 of them are autistic with associated learning difficulties. So I'd spent an awful lot of time making sure they had an appropriate education, battling the system, all the rest of it. The 3 kids were born within 6 years. There's 2 years between the 3 of them. So there was my body did an awful lot, and I was not prioritizing my well-being. So when we get to COVID, as with everybody, my body weight went up even more and my activity levels went down even more. And I really felt it. And it was the first time in my life that I'd felt, I felt like I was getting old. And I was like 33. I felt like I was getting old, aches and pains. My back hurts. Can't kind of lean down. My mobility was suffering. But at that point, just like everybody else who hits that point, I'm just like, oh, I'm just getting old. This is just the way it is. And I hadn't made the connection between how my lifestyle had contributed to that. And I happened to, in the break, I don't know whether you had a similar thing in the US, but we sort of we had a big quarantine, then we had a gap, and then we had another quarantine. So in the gap between the quarantines, I got out and I was doing some stuff in the community, and I happened to talk to somebody from the University of Sheffield, and he broke the news to me, not directly, but just as a part of the discussion that we were having, that aches and pains as you get old are not inevitable, and they're usually a result of muscle weakness and muscle loss, and people can start to get muscle wastage from about 30. And most people assume muscle wastage happens in much later life, that it's something for retired people. But if you are not using your muscles, you will start to lose them from the age of 30. And of course, with the other things, the extra body weight I was carrying, plus the muscle loss, the impact on my joints was basically what was causing all the aches and pains that I was feeling. And that was a bit of a light bulb moment, because at the point, and in fact, I did a little bit of a piece to camera just not long after that said, I went and did this exercise thing, and if I can do it, so can you, because I'm not a gym person. I had no relationship with exercise at all at that point, but that did trigger something in my head that said, actually, I have the power to change this. I can get stronger. This guy knows what he's talking about. It's what he lectures at university about. I can get stronger, and then I won't feel this terrible in the future, and it's going to be better for me in the future. So I started at that time. I didn't really have a job, so I didn't have an awful lot of resource or money. So it happened to be the reason I was talking to this guy was because of like an outside gym that was being introduced in our town. So I started using the outside gym equipment, and then eventually progressed there from to the confidence to go to the gym. So of course, exercising in public is pretty scary, but at least I could have the full control over what I did with the exercise equipment in the park, and I could do it by myself. Once I started going into groups and going into the physical gym, that was like, that took a lot of bravery to do that, because I was relinquishing a little bit of the control, and still at that point not hugely confident with moving my body, didn't have a good literacy when it comes to exercises, so was kind of, you know, trying and failing and messing things up, which is an uncomfortable place to be, but a very valuable and important place, because you can't get on unless you make those early mistakes. And then not long after that, so I started in a gym, just kind of, I made up a little full body workout with dumbbells that I could follow every time I went in. And then kind of a year or so after that, I realized I really was enjoying squats, but I knew I wasn't really getting them right. And it was just, again, a very, very logical autistic thought process, which was like, you know who can squat? Powerlifters can squat. So if I go and get a powerlifting coach, he'll teach me how to squat. And now I'm a powerlifter.
That's amazing. I love hearing all of that, and I think it's so inspiring just to hear, you know, especially I myself, I'm not a mom, but I have a lot of my girlfriends who are, and I can't ever properly express just how proud as a friend and as a woman I always am when I hear moms just making it the best for themselves, whatever that looks like, right? So, you know, you're mentioning, and it's different, right? The seasons are different. You had this moment where your kids really needed you. They needed your presence, your advocacy. And unfortunately, sometimes other things are going to have to fall by the wayside. Not everything can get your 100%, 100% of the time. So in that moment, it was the kids, right? And then once they were at that point where that work you'd put in paid off, they had the resources they needed. They're also a little older, so they can understand and be like a little more self-sufficient. And your choice was to find a way to utilize this information you got in the conversation with your friend who's a professor, and use it to better your life and what that looked like for you, and find the things that help your body, you know, work at its best and feel its best. And so taking that transition from kind of the public space workouts in the parks, and then getting into the gym, and then not only getting in the gym, but then going out and finding a powerlifting coach. And honestly, let's just take a break right there, because I would love for you to explain, not only to myself and the listeners, you know, what is the difference between kind of regular weightlifting and then what is powerlifting?
Absolutely. Fantastic. So any kind of, you know, there's a variety of different weights in the gym, and sometimes when people talk about weightlifting, they mean any kind of picking up of weights in the gym. Sometimes when people talk about weightlifting, they talk about the sport of weightlifting, which is the one where you'll have seen people holding the weight over their heads, right? So the sport of weightlifting is a barbell on the floor, and you've got to get the bar from the floor to over your head. Usually that's through either a snatch, which is a kind of like a one movement, or a clean and jerk, where you bring it up to your chest and then you kind of push it up there. So that's the sport of weightlifting, and that's what people see more often. They see that more often than powerlifting, because weightlifting is an Olympic sport. And unfortunately, powerlifting is not an Olympic sport. So powerlifting is you do 3 movements. Squat, where you have the bar on your back, you kind of sit down and stand back up. Bench press, where you're lying on a bench, you unrack the bar, unrack the bar, bring it down to your chest, and then push it back up again. And deadlift, where the bar's on the floor and you reach down and pick it up into a standing position and then put it back down. So you've got those 3 disciplines within powerlifting, and it's nice and simple. The number you pick up in kilos is your score, and it just gets added up of those 3 lifts. So whatever you squat plus whatever you bench press plus whatever you deadlift is your total, and that's your score in powerlifting. And it's a competitive sport, and it's loads of fun.
It sounds like it. I know for me, anytime I'm in the gym or I'm doing something physical and I just see the improvement, I think being able to have it be tangible, I don't know if it's just innate to certain people or us as human beings, but seeing tangible growth and success like just does something for my brain in a good way. And I can't even imagine what it must be like kind of seeing that total score just continue to grow as you grow in your sport. So getting into the gym, realizing that you wanted to push it a little bit more in a very specific way and get into powerlifting, and you found a coach. Were you nervous at all? Or did you have any kind of imposter syndrome as you decided that you wanted to reach out to somebody and really pursue this? Can you tell us more about that, pivot to that part of your journey?
Sure. So I guess that was a challenge, and it was around the fact that it was such a huge jump. Right, such a huge jump from going to working out by myself in the gym with headphones on, trying my best to be as invisible as possible, to going to a very well lit specialist powerlifting gym where I had made the decision I was going to invest in this. I was going to invest in a better equipped gym, invest in the support of a coach. And also there was going to be an extra social dimension to the whole thing, because I was going to then be with other powerlifters, and in this nice equipped gym is also lots of other people who also powerlift and are in friendship groups, and so on. So kind of the socially difficult thing for me was I'm coming into it as a 36-year-old mother of 3, and most of the other people in that gym are 23-year-old boys. Right?
Big demographic difference.
Yeah, just a totally different demographic.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so I want to make friends with some people in this group, and I'm not exactly sure how to do that. And also because I'm redefining my identity while I'm doing this as well, right? Because this is all very new to me. So even I was thinking, okay, I need some new exercise clothes. I was changing my body shape at the same time, so I need exercise clothes. What do I buy? What does this new Samantha Townsend look like? Do I try and buy Gymshark? No. What do I buy? So that was a really interesting challenge for me, kind of. And the advice I would give to anybody else is to remember that you are you, and you are always going to be you. So trying to be somebody else is always going to fail, right? Actually, what I say to people is, always be yourself, so that the people who are looking for you can find you. And I think that's just
I love that.
Yeah, when you are that person going into a strange place, because there are other people, and you may not see them to start with, but they will see you, and your very presence is a message to other people that they are welcome to. And that's certainly what I found with my social media, with getting involved in powerlifting. I compete, I MC, which means I kind of commentate at competitions. I volunteer at competitions. I'm very visible in the local community, and people tell me that because they've seen me, they feel more comfortable to do things, and that's incredible, and I love it.
Oh God, that's the best. I mean, honestly, just hearing you talk as like a side note, I'm thinking like, how lucky are your kids to have you as a mom? Like, not only with the way that you advocate for them, but for the way that you've intentionally and in this, you know, new way. And I hate to say it this way, like I don't want to say like later in life. You were only in your mid 30s when you started this, but it's so easy for so many people to think like once their 20s are over, like any new opportunity is also over, which is such a lie.
Yeah.
But you know, the way that you speak of yourself and you speak to others, and I was just thinking like, how lucky are your kids to just have that be so pertinent in their life. It's so beautiful. And so you mentioned you got into this when you were 36. And I know in talking with you, you mentioned that this was only about 2.5 years ago, and you've already secured some pretty impressive achievements and records for yourself. So I'd love to get into those a little bit more. Now let's start off talking about this squat of yours that secured you a regional record.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I mean, it kind of comes back to like the start. Like I say, I started powerlifting because I enjoyed squatting in the gym. And I think that's a message for anybody with any kind of exercise or any kind of movement, is really, it really is about what you enjoy. If you're doing something that you enjoy, you're going to work harder when you train it, and it's going to, it's going to keep you coming back. Exercise is meant to be fun. Moving your body is fun. So yeah, don't punish yourself. So yeah, so I have become somewhat a squat specialist, as we say in powerlifting. And in my recent competition, which was only last weekend, I squat 207 kilos, which is 456 pounds, and got myself a regional record. And I'm so proud for many reasons, but I'll tell you a couple. That is double my body weight, so that's two of me, which is I'm not a small person, so it's double my body weight. Like I say, it is a regional record, and that's the record for all age categories. So we've got because muscle mass does decrease as you get older. We have different categories for masters, lifters. So people who age 40 and over, 50 and over, 60 and over have their own categories. And then there's the open category, which I'm still in, which is 25 to 40. So I'm at the top end of the open category, and I got the open record. So I'm really, really proud of that. It was my first, it's in a type of powerlifting called equipped powerlifting, which means you get to wear extra equipment. It was my first equipped powerlifting competition, and with the 3 lifts, and I got that record. And I'm just so excited because I'm strong enough. It moved really well. And so I know I'm strong enough to push that record even higher, but I won't get an opportunity to compete in that exact discipline again until next year, unfortunately. But it could be something that means that I may get invited to compete internationally on behalf of Great Britain next year. So,
that is incredibly exciting. And I am just sitting here beaming for you because I love, like deeply love how many times you said that you're proud of yourself for this. Because I know that we have touched on it a bit, but sometimes as women, regardless of your age and your achievements, it's so easy for people to want to either make you feel like you're bragging or like you shouldn't feel that proud or anything. And I think, again, that is such a lie. And it's such a falsehood, because being able to set your mind to something, achieve it, and then not only that, you mentioned in there that weight moved good. You felt good moving that. And you know that there's already more, like you already have that thought initially, immediately, that like, we've got more.
We've got more.
And you're ready to go and attack it.
Yeah.
Still being proud of what you've already accomplished and knowing that there's more for you to grow towards. Like, it's everything about what this is about. And I'm so excited for the listeners to get to hear this, because it's so important to be able to see some unabashed joy and pride when you work hard for something.
Absolutely.
And also, it's just impressive as hell. It's just impressive as hell. Like,
absolutely. And you're so right. You know, we're conditioned to make ourselves small. We're told from a very young age, you shouldn't be too forthright. You shouldn't be too confident. But actually, yeah, I train 3 times a week. Like I say, I've invested in the training and all the rest of it, the coach. It's really powerful to, like you say, it's a recordable thing. It's not I just feel like it was heavy. It's recordable how heavy it is. It's recordable that the only person in my weight category locally who squat that weight. So it is impressive. Excuse me. It is impressive. There is no it's a really good way to challenge somebody who has a sense of low self-worth, because when you are putting the work in, you're achieving something and you are getting the results, then that's, you know, if there's ever a time to be proud of yourself, that's it. And it's all down to you. And that's one of the reasons why seeing women in particular commit to strength training and getting stronger is such a joy to watch, because like you say, you get that kind of self-belief out of somebody, which, you know, that the society is just determined to beat out of us, right?
No, and I'm also, and again, it's probably just my mindset. It's probably because of how I grew up, but I love sharing it as much and as easy as I can, where I also I love strong women. I love seeing women be, and whatever that looks like, right? Because again, we all have different shapes and body sizes. A strong on somebody who is like Alona Mar, who is like 5'10" and 200 pounds, is going to be a different strong than somebody like, you know, my little sister who is like 5'2" and like 130 or something. It's a different kind of strong, but whatever that strong looks like to you, I love it. And like my husband knows, and he's known this forever because he's been with me through all my phases of growth and life and sports. Because I mentioned I played softball growing up, and I actually played rugby in college for a couple of years.
All right.
So I am always like, when I feel like kind of most proud of myself, for some reason, my immediate reaction physically is like, I'll flex. Like, I'll be like, oh, yes. You just feel so like good in your whole body and your whole self, and like feeling strong is just something that I'm always like, no, you don't have to be teeny tiny, especially, you know, again with messaging. It's like you can feel good about yourself and take up space, whatever that looks like, physically, vocally, mentally. So again, with another one of your physical achievements that I want to touch on too, is you mentioned you just had one of your first equipped bench or powerlifting competitions, and you medaled in and you know, not even just placing, right? A full-on silver medal in the British equipped bench pressing championship.
Yeah. So in powerlifting, like I say, you've got the generally most competitions are the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift, but we can also compete bench press only. So it was actually only my second equipped bench press competition was the British National Equipped Bench Press Championships in January, and I got silver. And
wow.
Again, you know, incredible I pressed 112.5 kilos in that competition, and it was very, very, very close to being invited onto the international team for that one, but just missed out, unfortunately.
Oh my goodness.
But that is the elite side of the sport. So
yeah.
to be even considering it less than 3 years into the sport is huge. And with my age, like you say, 38 is not old. It's not old. But the vast majority of powerlifters are in their early 20s. People tend to sort of lose sight of it as they transition into work and family life and things. So there aren't as many powerlifters who are my age, and because it does tend to be younger people who are in sort of the top end of powerlifting in the elite sport, it's kind of become a little bit of received wisdom that sort of that there is a ceiling around 30, but actually if you talk to people like me, talk to the vast array of masters lifters that there are, and look at the science, it is clear that you can get stronger at any age. And like you say, being strong is so empowering for everybody. It's so great for every aspect of your physical well-being as a woman. So certainly I would love for people to hear the message that it's not too late. It's 35, certainly not too late. 45, still not too late. I know powerlifters who are out there lifting weights in their 60s and 70s, and they are smashing it.
I always love when I see those, like when I see some of these achievements where, the age is associated with it. Like, oh, this 74-year-old ran the Boston Marathon or things like that. Or this 78-year-old woman decided to get into lifting when she was 72. And, it's not too late. And I love hearing you say that. And you've talked so much about all these, wonderful moments in your journey. I'm wondering if on the way to these goals and while you're still working on them, especially since putting your journey out there publicly online, and we know that the internet can be a nasty place sometimes, unfortunately. Have you faced any kind of negative comments or criticisms? And if so, what is a piece of advice that you have in dealing with that for anybody that also kind of maybe just trying to navigate some of the nasty noise that comes online?
Yeah. And unfortunately, yes, I have had some pretty awful experiences online. When you're putting your body out there, when you're doing fitness content, you are showing your whole body. And so it's always going to feel really personal when people say things. Thankfully, I was already quite confident in myself. I only started putting content out there once I'd started powerlifting, and by that point I was fairly confident. Like I said, I had a coach, so if I had any actual concerns about how I was doing things, I had somebody trusted that I could go to and talk to. And so I have had a couple of things. I've had a couple of people ask me if I'm pregnant, because, like I say, I am a 225-pound woman who's had 3 children, so I do carry a good amount of my body fat on my tummy. But also, when you are bracing, doing movements like squats and deadlifts, your tummy does stick out a little bit more. So I've had some really strange comments around, should you be doing that? Is it going to hurt the baby? And some of those I kind of did chalk up to ignorance, but some of them were malicious. I had some people kind of try and denigrate what I do because it's equipped powerlifting. So with equipped powerlifting, like I say, you use more equipment. It means you can lift heavier weights. I'm under no illusion. I am not strong enough at the moment to squat 207 kilos raw, but I can squat 207 kilos in equipment, and it's a perfectly legitimate type of powerlifting. But some people who struggle with that. But also, weirdly enough, the more kind of hurtful stuff comes from other women. I think I expect a certain thing from men. So maybe it's just that I expect better from women.
Yeah.
But I posted, so I had a lovely day in a spa recently, and I got a tiny bikini, and I had a lovely day in a spa, and I took some nice photos of myself in my tiny bikini, and
As you should.
and I put them in a group which is meant to be about women's fitness and women's weightlifting, and I had a comment along the lines of, you are not fit and you are not sexy. What I see is an obese woman, and your body tells the story of the neglect that you've put it through, or something like that. And I'm like, wow,
Oh my
you
God.
don't know what you're looking at, like. And I think one of the things that people struggle with is because we are taught, so it's like not up for debate in society that fat is bad, right? So everybody, if I am overweight, which I am, my number one health priority must be losing body fat. And that's just not realistic. It's not actually based in science. And everybody's got their own priorities when it comes to their health. What I say to people, so because there are so many women that have internalized that so much, when they see somebody like me who is confident and big, they see that as a threat, and they react quite aggressively towards it. So thankfully, it's a minority, but I do get that from other women along the lines of, you're just kidding yourself, you're just fat, you need to lose weight. So yeah, it's not very nice. But like I say, it's just not based in fact either, because health is just not as simple as body weight. There are so many things that lead into your health. Obviously, your muscle mass is part of what makes up a healthy body, or your bone density is something else that is important for your health. But there's loads of other things you can't see that are important to people's health, like their sleep quality, how many friends they've got, how happy they are. Are they depressed? Are they anxious? And actually focusing on powerlifting, focusing on getting stronger, which means that I'm not focused on losing weight, helps me on all those other different ways. So losing body fat is just not a priority for my health, and it doesn't actually mean I'm unhealthy.
Really interesting too. There was and I'm gonna have to find it, and I will link it in the episode, because I am not somebody who likes to, say facts without having them backed up. But I did come across a study recently that has proven that people who lift weights as a part of their exercise, whether it's a type of focused progressive resistance training or overload over time, have brain health that is about 2 to 3 years at least younger than what their actual age reflects on paper. And there's also, that was its own study. I will find that one. I will link it to quote it properly here in the episode. But then there are countless ones that I'm sure you know and have seen, and I know and have seen, where, your muscle mass and your muscle like density that you have and acquire helps with so many other things. It helps with joint health, it helps with organ optimization, and obviously, as I mentioned, brain health, cardiovascular health, all those things. And it's just not as simple as looking at someone's body or whatever number they are on a scale and being able to say, again, same with, I use myself as the example. Well, you're 5'4" and 191. You've got to be fat and unhealthy and overweight, and your life must be miserable. And it's like, okay, you can think that. It's not true.
Yeah.
And I've had my own journey with exercise, and then having, life need my energy and focus elsewhere. And I did gain a lot of weight. I had the same things that you went through, where I felt, oh, it's just getting 30. It's just this,
Yeah.
or it's just that. At my biggest, I was right around 240, and I felt not great. And I've worked on my own fitness and my own health with my doctors and with, workout coaches and nutritionists. And now it's like, yeah, people would probably still look at me and think, ugh. But I look at myself and I'm like, damn, I feel good. And I love getting to feel the way I feel when I work out. And I love feeling more mobility and being able to, enjoy like dumb things. Like I can go and keep up with my dogs. And it feels fun to just run around with them and be silly and not have those aches. And it doesn't matter what that looks like on a scale or what it looks like on the size of my shorts. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. And so I know,
Yeah.
like, that's unfortunately the ugly side of it, and the negative side that we're hoping to combat with things like this, with the work that you do and putting your journey out there, and with sharing episodes like this on the podcast. But I would love to know, do you have a moment that maybe has been the most rewarding part of sharing your journey publicly?
Yeah, and there's not one specific one, but it is really anytime somebody reaches out and says, because of you, I felt I was comfortable to go to the gym. Because of you, because I train in a sports bra and shorts sometimes. I've had people saying, because of you, I felt comfortable to train in my sports bra and shorts. It's not about exhibitionism, it's about being comfortable. And if you're working out, you probably are getting quite hot, and you should be comfortable doing that. So people who saying, I tried deadlifting, or I tried a bench press for the first time because of you, or I pushed myself a little bit harder because of you, or I went and found a coach. Those are really, really lovely things to hear. And I just love to see it. Like you said, there's so many health impacts, particularly for women. I guess most of the people who enjoy my content are women over about 35. Yeah, it's so great for us to have that time in the gym that is just for us, and it is so great for us to get stronger. So for anybody trying those things out for the first time, or feeling a bit more confident because they've seen me doing it, that's a huge win. But going back to what we were saying before about health, another thing that I kind of get frustrated with is the idea that there is such a thing as healthy and unhealthy. That there's like, at one point you are going to get to the point that I'm going to get to the point where I squat 230 kilos, and at that point in time I am going to be healthy, is nonsense, isn't it? Because health is a lifelong journey. We are all
Absolutely.
on a journey to better health and well-being. So anybody who can really look down on somebody else and say, oh, I'm healthy and you're not, are just kidding themselves, whether they think that because of their body fat percentage or because of how strong they are. Strength athletes don't tend to look down on other people, because we all know how much work it takes to get strong. So yeah, that's the other thing I say to people. Unfortunately, the reality of life is that we are all kind of temporarily able-bodied. We are all going to experience some kind of disability in our life as we get older. So it's just really powerful to be grateful for where we are and what we can do right now. You are never going to be younger than you are today, so enjoy it while you can, because as you get older and things happen, you will have to define your health in different ways because your ability to do things will change, and that's just the joy and the mystery of the human experience, right?
Yeah. No, it really is. It really is. And gosh, you said so many wonderful things there that I just wanted to expand upon about, uh, especially, again, having grown up in athletics and being around my fair share of athletes at various stages in their careers, right? Amateurs, professionals. I always find it it's refreshing, and it's also just a good thing to one of those things that makes you go, where I feel like it is the people that are in it, right? That are less likely to be judgy of others' journeys and more supportive, or just kind of give more of a nod to that because they understand like the work that goes into it at any level. And it's
Yeah.
so funny. It's kind of always like the armchair expert or the keyboard warrior that has the opinion. Whereas, if you run across people that are, have platforms or are professionals, if they see you or if they have any kind of coming across you, it's almost always just encouragement. Of
Yeah.
course, you have the exceptions. You have the people that think they're kind of on their high horse or whatever. But for the most part, the people that are in it are really just encouraging, and it's interesting to kind of see that dichotomy of where people are versus how they engage with what you're pursuing. And also, I love, and I think it's something that more people should remember. So I love that you shared it, but like health is a lifelong journey. And
Mhm.
and it's a privilege and it's a blessing to be and feel whatever healthy is for you, because age gets us all, right? If,
Yeah.
if we if we are fortunate and privileged enough to age, because aging really is a privilege. It's not something everybody gets to do. But if you are fortunate and privileged enough to age, you're gonna wrinkle, you're gonna sag, you're gonna
Mhm.
need to go to the doctor more times in a year than you want to, because that's just the nature of our bodies, right? So to be able to utilize what you have while you have it, and to be able to kind of do what's best for you to live that life that allows you to be fulfilled in that body. I think it's just so wonderful that you shared it, and it means so much to me that you spoke it in that way.
And to loop back to what we were saying before, right, about looking back at our own childhood pictures, and we thought we were fat and we had a perfectly normal and healthy body shape, right? We will look back on where we are now when we are 60, 70, 80, right? We'll look back on where we are now with those same eyes and we'll say, gosh, why did I think I was fat, ugly, saggy, wrinkly? I was so beautiful then. And we will say to ourselves, why were you so embarrassed to go and wear comfortable clothes in the gym? Why were you so embarrassed to wear the tiny bikini? If I had that body, I would wear the tiny bikini right now, And so I think
Yes.
that's something to reflect on as well.
Yep. No, I agree. And oh, you said something right there that, oh, when you're talking about, when you look back on old pictures of yourself, a thing that I'm a big proponent on, like, just putting into action what you want as best as you can. Just start, right? And so one of the things that I started doing maybe a couple years ago is, when you take a photo, you have somebody take a photo of you, or you take a group photo, and then now we have immediate review of the photo.
Mhm.
You look at it, you see, is it a good picture? Do I like it? Do I like how I look in it? I just immediately started, if anybody turns around and shows it to me, I give it less than 1 second of a look, and I just go, yep, still hot. Yep,
I love
still
it.
gorgeous. Because if I sit there forever and think, well, does it look good? Like, do I look beautiful? Do I
Mm.
look hot? Should I change my pose? Should I suck it in? Should I stand taller? I'm going to make myself miserable when, like you're saying, eventually, when I'm like 70 or 90 years old, I'm going to be like, God, I was so gorgeous in my
Yeah.
30s. Why was I so mean to right? Because we
Yeah.
all do it. It's human nature. So if I can just try to implement it now, regardless of if it's the true feeling I have in the moment, right? Just
Mhm.
don't give it a second thought. Just like, yep, still hot, still gorgeous, still beautiful.
Yeah, and that's part of the challenge that I've got. Like I say, putting things on Instagram, it's important for me that because of my social justice and my brain, it's important for me that that's a really authentic representation, and that I'm not kind of pulling my, obviously, as always, I look at things and I go, I wish I hadn't stood in that lighting. I wish I'd worn different clothes that day. Parts of myself that I don't like as much are accentuated. But it's important for me to put that out there and to be authentic with that, because it's real. And I know that I see that. I look at that cellulite or whatever, but other people don't see that. They see the authentic me that I'm putting out there. But also, I've got a 10-year-old girl, so it's important for me to model those behaviors to her. I'm not standing in front of a mirror being self-critical every day. I'm not pulling myself apart in photos, because if I do that, she will internalize that, and that'll become part of her lived experience. And she's probably going to kind of develop those behaviors anyway, because they're baked into society, but I don't have to be part of that.
Yes, that's so true. And like speaking from experience as, a young girl when I was and raised by the mother that I had, it makes a difference. Like my mom has a very similar body type to me. And of course it's more evident that she, had 3 kids as well. And her weight has gone up and down over the years, and, been heavier, been not as heavy. And I will say, I really can't think back on a time growing up where she was ever negative about her body. And she was never somebody who was ever petite. She probably was never under 5'4" and 200 pounds when I was growing up. But I never heard her talk badly about herself. I never heard her say that she hated her arms or didn't like her stomach, or that her butt was too big, or that her thighs were too big. She would just kind of call out her body in ways that were either silly, or in ways that were confident, right? Like her strong legs or her strong arms. And then in reference to me, I would say things like, "Oh, my legs are big." No, your legs are strong like mine. Or
That's
your
great.
legs, more on the ability and less about the aesthetic, because that's not the important thing at the end of the day.
No, that's it. What is your body for? What is your body for? I'm married, so maybe if I wasn't married, I'd feel a different way if I was interested in attention. But ultimately, your body is just there as a vehicle for you to have wonderful experiences in the world, isn't it? So as long as it enables you to do that, it's doing its job. And yeah, all of the reasons why we do pull ourselves apart, it just feels like all of those things are just kind of planted in our heads by companies that want to sell us stuff, isn't it? So there's nothing inherently bad about having thick thighs, and anybody who tries to tell you that is probably trying to sell you something.
Yes, and it's so funny now that I'm getting older, because my mom's getting older too, and we were fortunate enough to have my grandma live with us for a long time when I was growing up. And so she's now passed, and she was just such a wonderful light and personality, and someone who also very much loved herself. And it's my mom's getting older, and it's so funny to see how like her older shape is so reminiscent of my grandma. And it's the first time that I'm seeing a transition like that with my own relatives. And so for me, I like got a chuckle out of it the other day when her and I were out at a ball game together. She was walking in front of me, and I'm like, that's me in 30 years.
Yeah.
Because that was her mom 30 years ago, right? So it's just one of those things where you just find the beauty in it.
Yeah, that's another thing as well, isn't it? We're taught to that sort of younger girls are aspiring to be like celebrities, for example, and those celebrities are selling workout plans or meal plans, and the kind of the suggestion is, if you eat and move like me, that you'll look like me. And we know us mature women who've experienced a bit of life, we just know that's not true. There's just so much of how you look that is just written into your genetics. And if you move and eat the same way as Kim Kardashian, it doesn't mean you're going to look like her. You just maybe look like a slightly fitter version of yourself.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is I think one, right, part of it is it's not just moving and eating like them. There are teams of people that ensure that they look a certain way.
Yeah.
Stylists, hair people, makeup, like all of it, doctors. And it's just one of those things where it's like, and that's like their job that they've taken on in society. That's who they are. That's what they need to be able to look like that and be that way. And the average person with the average income is not going to have that. And you can't make yourself miserable or make yourself broke over it, because like you mentioned again, somebody is going to be looking for you. And gosh, I hope you show up as you when they're looking for you, right? So I think that is so beautiful. It's a full circle thing to think about. And, talking about how you've gotten into, your powerlifting in your mid 30s and just the trajectory that I see it taking for you. What are some of the goals that you are looking forward to, both in your powerlifting journey and in continuing to share your story?
Yeah, so I am looking to, so like I said, there's age categories in powerlifting, right? So next year I become a master, which means that I turn 40 next year. So I will be looking to compete as a master in the British Championships in both classic and equipped powerlifting. So I'll be competing both raw, which does include some equipment, and an equipped, which includes lots of equipment. And in at least the equipped one, I think I've got a really good chance of being selected to represent Team GB internationally, possibly for the classic one as well, but that is a bit more competition there. So I would be really excited for the opportunity to represent Great Britain internationally next year, if that's going to come off. It's a tricky one because we do have to fund all that stuff myself, so I'm going to have to try and see if I can get some sponsors on board, but I'm sure I'll be able to sort it out. It's not a big deal. And just keep doing what I'm doing. I'm really excited about the fact that, like I say, I am getting more and more women reaching out to me to say they've tried new things or they've started powerlifting partly because they've seen what I do. So I would love to see that community of kind of beginner, late 30s, early 40s powerlifting women come together a bit more and do something together, because everybody's kind of isolated on their own doing those kinds of things, and it's so powerful to go and train with other people. But I'm not doing anything particularly to bring those people together myself. But yeah, I'd love to see it happen. And just keep doing what I'm doing. I've done a little bit of sort of coaching, not particularly, not taking on clients as such, but helping people through specific competitions. So what we have in powerlifting is basically we have what we call a handler on competition day, so somebody to babysit us on competition day. So I've babysit other lifters in big competitions, and I'm looking to handle some lifters in the nationals, the Masters Nationals this year in June. So I would like to develop my knowledge in the sport a little bit more, maybe get a referee qualification, just to do something that kind of develops it a little bit more. Because I do like learning stuff, and I do help out in lots of different ways, and I want to be I want to be a positive and constructive member of the community, really. So I don't know where that's going to lead me.
Well, I think you are more than well on your way and already there at being a really positive and constructive member of this community that you've entered. As we were wrapping up our time together, my last question that I love to ask my guests is, if because the sentiment here at Exercise Confidence is that confidence is like a muscle, and we need to exercise and stretch it if we want to grow it. So if you had one piece of advice to help our listeners exercise confidence daily, what would your piece of advice be?
So one thing that has really helped me is being around the right people. Now, in my early days, when I first started in the gym, I was alone, but I found podcasts like this one, podcasts of people who I really related to, who were talking to each other, and I listened to that, and so they were my people in the gym. But if you at all can, please do reach out to people who try and go to the gym roughly the same time, roughly the same day, and you will find there are people there who you see regularly, and just talk to them, because like we said earlier, anybody who is doing the work will never look down on somebody who's trying to do the work. And they'll always be so flattered if you are looking up to them and you're asking them for help and advice. They're not going to be like, oh no, go away. Talk to people, find people to walk this road with you, and that will always help you be more confident, because they will turn around to you and they'll say, hey, you're smashing it. They'll see the things that you're doing that you haven't even realized you're doing yet, and they will reassure you that you're on the right road.
Oh, I love that. It really is so pivotal to have the right people around you, and I think it's an incredible piece of advice to end our episode on. Samantha, thank you so much for being here today. And I meant to mention this earlier. Thank you for bringing your beautiful, shiny, thick hair on our podcast. I keep staring at it this entire episode. I'm like, it's so shiny and so lush. Oh my goodness. But no, thank you. I think I'm so excited for our listeners to just hear your story. And I just know that it's going to resonate with so many people in a really meaningful way. So I can't thank you enough.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.